The development of this podcast was sponsored by Alexion Pharmaceuticals Incorporated. The viewpoints expressed are those of the person speaking and not of Alexion. Welcome to NMOSD Your Way Global, an educational podcast series for NMOSD patients worldwide. NMOSD stands for Neuromyelitis Optica Spectrum Disorder, a rare relapsing autoimmune disorder of the central nervous system which primarily affects the optic nerves and the spinal cord. Your podcast hosts Lalania Lloyd and Debbie Latique, who have both lived with NMOSD for over 10 years, will be bringing their respective Canadian and Australian perspectives to the table in order to help patients worldwide better understand NMOSD. Over the next 16 episodes, clinicians, researchers, and fellow patients will come together to have important conversations about how to live your best life within your diagnosis. They will be offering up encouragement and practical tips for overall health and well-being. In this episode, Debbie chats with Erica and Linda, who also live with NMOSD. They discuss their journey from a patient perspective, from the beginning of their symptoms to diagnosis and living well day to day with NMOSD. So, let's get started.
Welcome, girls, to the Your Way NMOSD podcast. Our listeners have heard from me before in previous episodes, so I'm really excited to invite Linda and Erica to the NMOSD couch today to chat about this little known and quite rare condition. Linda and I have met in person a few years ago, and Erica and I have met several times online. It's a wonderful opportunity that doesn't present itself very often to be chatting with others with NMOSD. I would love to know a bit more about how you get by, your supports, and what you do to stay positive. Can we kick off by asking you to introduce yourselves? Erica, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm 51. I'm married. I now no longer work through my disability. I have 2 adult children and I have 4 grandchildren under the age of 5. I live at home with my husband, which is good because we're in a 1-level house, which has made life easier. And I was diagnosed initially with NMO in 2019, September.
Thanks, Erica. Thanks for your introduction. Now your turn, Linda.
Morning. Thanks for having this chat, Debbie and Erica. I'm Linda. I'm 46 years old. I am married and I have one beautiful 16-year-old child. I don't work at the moment and it just allows me to concentrate on getting better. I have many hobbies, mainly walking, colouring in, doing lots of Sudoku and watching lots of Netflix. And I was diagnosed with NMO in February 2017.
Okay, thanks again, girls. I was hoping I could go on and ask you about your first episode. As I know, we are all so very different when we first have our first episode, so it'll be really interesting to hear about each of your experiences. Can you explain what happened that very first time? Erica?
Yeah, I had optic neuritis that was diagnosed over 20 years ago, the first time, and then I was given an MRI of my brain at that point. I was in New Zealand and they said there was just one lesion. It could be MS, but there's nothing else. So just go away and carry on with life. And from then on, really, I've had numerous medical things happen: numbness, fatigue, tiredness. Got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. Had to reduce hours at work. I then also had a second bout of optic neuritis about 12 years ago. I was treated with steroids back then, both times, and I just got told to get on with it. We don't know what it is, just carry on life. In hindsight, when I look back, even when my children were 3 and 4, my husband decorated our bedroom with me asleep in bed because I couldn't get out of bed. But I just thought I was just a tired mum, but who knows? And then it happened again. I've had some major fatigue issues for a couple of days, and then I come right again. And then nearly 3 years ago now, I started to lose the sight in my right eye. I had half vision. And then I contacted my GP. I went to my GP every day for 7 days because I knew I needed steroids. I knew it was optic neuritis, but I couldn't get in to see a doctor. Then I woke up and my eyesight was jet black. I had no vision whatsoever in it. So I really knew I needed to see an ophthalmologist. And I rang his clinic, and he was in theatre, and told her that my vision had now gone completely. And he rang back and said he'd see me after surgery that day. And that man changed my life for the better in my eyes. I walked in and he said he was going to send me for a blood test because 80% of people with a disease called NMO, which he hoped I didn't have, test positive for this, aquaporn 4, and for a spinal MRI. That was on the Monday. On the Thursday, he was going on holiday, but he felt that he knew I wanted to know. He rang me and told me my blood test had come back positive, which was really quick to get the result, he said. But yeah, it was. And that was the first time I kind of cried. By that point, I'd already looked up on Google, NMO. And there was kind of a good thing, because having been ill for years, when somebody suddenly said, you have something, I mean, I didn't want it, but at least it wasn't all in my head anymore. And then, unfortunately for me, I booked in to see a neurologist. That was the Thursday. On the Monday, and on the Sunday, I had an attack and I had a lesion happen on my spine from T5 to T10 and became paralysed from breastbone down. But at least I could walk. Well, I couldn't walk. No, that's wrong. At least I could. When I got to the emergency, I kind of said I had NMO, and they all went, what's NMO? I've never heard of that. And I'm like, no, I have NMO. I'm blind and I can't walk. And I'm in agony. Can you do something? And I happened to be sent to my main hospital here, and that was the doctor I was going to see on the Monday. So he'd already had my records sent privately to him, but he saw me through the state hospital. And yeah, I arrived there and they turned around and told me, this is your home base. Anything happens to you, for anything, you come here. And it was like, thank God somebody knows what NMO is. And yeah, I mean, if it hadn't have been for that doctor, though, I wouldn't, I could have turned up at that emergency blind and paralysed and not had a clue of anything. So, yeah, I mean, I will forever be grateful for that doctor.
Erica, it's interesting, from that timeline that you just mentioned, from the time that you were diagnosed with optic neuritis, and thank goodness your ophthalmologist was onto it, and he was so supportive of you. From the time that happened and the time that you became paralysed, can I ask you, what was that time frame again?
So from the day he rang me was the Thursday, and on the Sunday the lesion happened on the spine, and I ended up in hospital and then met the neurologist on the Tuesday that I was meant to meet privately on the Monday before then.
Yeah. And it's interesting you said you looked up on Google. 10 years ago when I was diagnosed, the information on Google was really quite scary. But it is a relief to actually know, isn't it? So thanks, Erica, for sharing that. It's just an amazing story how different we all are with our first attack. Linda, would you like to share your story about your first attack?
So, like I mentioned before, I was diagnosed in February 2017, but now I know that back in December 2016, I was actually displaying early symptoms of NMO back then, and that was vomiting. So I had just unexplained bouts of vomiting, but I would just get an injection to stop to stop the vomiting, and it would sort of subside. And so it'd subside for a couple of months, and then it'd come back again. And, once again, I'd get another injection to stop the vomiting. And at that stage, I just sort of put it down to stress because the work that I was doing, we were living overseas. We were about to return back to Australia. So as most people would know, moving is stressful enough as it is, but moving internationally back to Australia, what are we going to do when we get back, et cetera, et cetera. So I just thought it was stress. So, so when February 2017 came around, I started to get this unexplained pain in between my shoulder blades. And I didn't know then, but I know now that it's nerve pain. And I know now that sensation that I was feeling was that burning that you get associated with nerve pain. So it was in between my shoulder blades, and I just sort of would shrug it off and kind of roll my shoulders and go, oh, did I do something at the gym or when I was running or what it was? Just sort of dealt with it. It would come and go. But then the day, it was early February, and I woke up early one morning, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and was vomiting just all night. There was just nothing left in my stomach. So in the morning, went down to the GP. He gave me an injection. I went back home. Within minutes of being home, started vomiting again, went back to my GP, who's still my GP today, a most amazing man. And he said, no, something's wrong with you, Linda. I can see I was only a 58 kilogram tiny little athlete. He just said, no, that doesn't sound good. Take this letter, go to ED. Walked into ED, lay down on a barrage, and within hours of me laying down on a barrage, became paralysed, similar to Erica, from the breast down. So just started getting the pins and needles in my fingers, then started feeling, I felt like I was levitating, and I felt heavy, the most bizarre feeling. And there was probably more, but with trauma, we all know that we sort of block things out. So, but felt like thousands. Lots of people came in doing all different tests. I got the blood tests. I got the straight away, but they only took like 2 or 3 vials. Chest tubes. Sorry, but I just people believed me. That's the thing that I've found very lucky with myself, is that people believed what was happening to me, and so they believed, and they sort of had an idea that it was neuro, and I ended up seeing the same like Erica, the most amazing lady in the world. I love her so dearly, and she just walked in and said, Linda, I think you have something that's known as neuromyelitis optica, and I went. And my husband, I saw him flick out the phone straight away, into the thing, and similar to you, Debbie, like yours was your diagnosis was way before mine, but even back then, like, he thought in 5 years' time I was going to die, and between now and then I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. That's what Dr. Google told him. So he put the phone away and just gave me that deer in the headlights look, where I just went, oh, this ain't good. But after that look, when he listened to Dr. Field, he has just been so stoic, just being like, come on, mate, you can do this. But I think once I got the lumbar puncture, which I didn't need anaesthetic for because I couldn't feel a thing. So once I got the lumbar puncture and the diagnosis, it was 2 weeks after the day that I arrived into hospital. So it took 2 weeks.
Okay. So that's interesting, because both of you had relatively fast, when I say it seems a long time, 2 weeks, but compared to others, it was fairly fast. And I think as time goes by, it has got quicker. Of course, 10 years ago for me, my diagnosis took anywhere between 6 and 12 months to be fully diagnosed. It's really interesting hearing also about the supports that you both had, that initial support from your GP and from your doctor, and also knowing that there was something seriously wrong with you and people believing you. And that's half the battle, is being believed, isn't it?
I think I was,
Absolutely.
yeah, I just knew that this was just not right. Like I've had optic neuritis before, so I knew I needed the steroids, but nobody ever did any other tests when I've been paralyzed or lost feeling before. It was just like, no, it's chronic fatigue, it's all those things. And it was purely that I saw an ophthalmologist, neurologist
Yeah.
who knew of neuromyelitis optica. And thank God I test positive for aquaportin 4, because I guess if I hadn't have been tested positive at that point, I'd have still rocked up on that Sunday at the hospital and been like Linda, in the way that they would have put me through everything until somebody decided, oh, there could be this thing. So, I had so many students and people from different specialist units come and see me, because I was like, oh, this is different. But yeah, great, because it means that they may remember it somewhere down the line in 10 or 15 years, and then they get a patient that presents similar and goes, oh, hang on, let's do a blood test and see whether you do this, which is
We end up becoming the teacher, don't we? Because it's so rare, and the majority of neurologists and GPs will never see NMOSD in their lifetime. And the same thing with my ophthalmologist as well. He just happened to be doing a lecture on it the next day, and he said, "Can you check over my notes?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's pretty accurate."
my doctor rang me in the hospital because I just kept pushing, and I was with him for years, so I knew him well. But he rang me and apologized while I was in the hospital and said, I'm so sorry that I didn't know. And I said, but you wouldn't know. Not everybody can know everything. But I suppose in the back of my head, 20 years ago, I'd been told it could be MS. So for me, I just felt that there's got to be some preventative meds here somewhere, that if I have something lingering, can we get something in me so I don't get any worse? So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So the next question we've really covered was your diagnosis, straightforward or something else altogether. So we've heard Erica had an MS question mark 20 years ago. Linda's was a bit more straightforward and faster. Mine was transverse myelitis. Mine was MS. Then finally NMOSD. What did you do to cope with the news at the time, Linda?
So when my lumbar puncture result came back positive, my neurologist said to me like this. She said, "No, make no mistake. This is horrible. Like what's happening to you is very serious to your body." But she pointed to her head and tapped her temple, and she said, "But your biggest battle is going to be this one." And I think, when she said that, I just straight away just went, "Oh, I've got this," because I think I spent had 20 years in the military, so I just kind of tapped into it like as if it was a bit of a mission for me, and if it was like this major, because I was logistics, so this major logistical complication that I was just not going to have it. So. Yep, I couldn't walk. Yes, I was paralysed from the waist down. Yes, I was in adult nappies. I'd lost bladder. I'd lost bowel. But I just I just kept seeing this. I just kept seeing her tapping her temple at me and just saying, "It's all in here," like as in the battle, not as in I was making it up. But yeah, and from then on, my husband was just like, "Babe, you've got this." Like he's always been my biggest. He's championed me my whole life since we met. Like in our careers, as a mum. So I was really lucky there, and I think then just putting in the really, really hard work with physio, now with EP that I have, physio, and just walking until the cows come home. It's just all been about mental and pushing myself physically. I know you get tired, but I just do it anyway and just sleep when I'm tired and then wake up and do it again.
Well, good on you, Linda. That mental strength is obviously what's really helped you get through, as well as working on your body and strength, body and mind. So good on you, Erica. How did you cope with the news at the time?
Kind of a bit the same. I cried my eyes out. It was the first time I cried when I got the phone call. But I knew I had a plan to see the neurologist and those kind of things. So that was good. When I had the attack and ended up in hospital, then my husband and I have been together since I've been 16, like 35 years kind of thing. And our house has always been that I can deal with issues and he does the building and all that kind of stuff, but I deal with all that. So suddenly I was the one in hospital that couldn't do a great deal. And all I just thought, me and my daughter, who was an adult and she was training to do nursing at the time as well. And all we had to do was sort my husband out because I needed him to be looked after. That was my thing. And then I needed my daughter to be looked after. So I rang her friends. So then I rang my son in England and got friends over there to support him and stuff, because that's what I do. I sort everybody else out. And I just kind of figured, look, the hospital, while I'm in here, they're dealing with me. So this bit is, I'm okay while I'm here. I'm just, when I came home, I luckily had a 12-week rehab in the community, and I had an amazing social worker who was a psychologist as well. And she said, right, by the time I leave you will need to know this, you will need to know that. And that gave me, she knew I needed something to put my head into, that I could aim, this is what I need to be doing, this is my plan. And then she spent time with Carl and let him just offload, because for us financially things were going to be different. We didn't want to lose the house. Both of us were scared about that. Yeah, we had to deal with the there and now. So you just kind of got on with it. And for me, that's kind of how I do stuff most of the time. But I've had to learn that I don't control everything anymore. And that's really, really hard for me. And the biggest way I do that is by allowing myself to have those crap days. Those days I wake up, whereas, normally you push yourself through and this, that, and the other. If I do that now, I realize that could last 2 or 3 days. If I allow myself to be a bit there, then that may only last 2 or 3 hours or a day. And that's okay. So, I've had to learn to be kind to me more.
That's right. It is very much about learning to pace yourself. I still laugh when my 90-year-old mother still worries about how I'm managing and how I'm pacing myself after 10 years of it. And I just say to her, Mum, don't worry, I'm managing it. I have good days and bad days, and if I had bad days, I rest. So, both of you, when it comes to family and friends, you talked about, supportive partners and family. Can you make any suggestions about what would help other people listening here today who've got family members in what?
I needed Carl to be able to, Carl and I are like best mates. So both of us have always talked to each other about everything. But suddenly he's scared stiff that I might die. He's scared stiff that should he do this or should he do that? And I'm not wanting him to do stuff but can't do stuff. So it needed to be a third party. There needed somebody that we could both go to and just go, blah. Not a family, not anybody, So friends were brilliant. We went to our local group, which meant that Carl could meet other carers, other people there, and got it. They could all be sarcastic about the people who had the MS or the NMO or whatever. And he needed to know that it was okay to feel like that, and okay to not cope, and okay to do all those things as a man, especially for him. My daughter, again, yes, she was a rock, but she takes after me, and I didn't want her to take on too much either because she had a young baby. So I would just say, try and meet like-minded people and just talk to people. People will listen, and if they don't listen, then they're not your friends either. We lost a few friends through all this, but we made some amazing people, so there's positives from it as well.
Yeah, it's interesting how some friends just don't cope. I lost friends as well, but I've made fantastic ones since. Yeah. What about you, Linda? Have you got any suggestions about what would help family members?
Yeah, I think, well, for Kai, that's my son. So I was conscious about how it was going to change his life more than my husband's, I think, because like I've already said to you, like my husband and I, we've always championed each other, and we've always spoken about all of this with positivity. It's never been negative. It's always like, oh, my leg hurts today, but I'm going to go and use the roller. I'm going to go and sit in the chair, go and get a massage, or go and, you know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a problem, but we give a solution. I think that's the military in me, but or just in the general with most people. But I think my son was the main one, and I think it was because he, had lost his mum who, we used to go out bike riding or walking or do this or do that. We'd just go and do stuff, and all of a sudden mum couldn't do it. And I think he was 11. He was 10 or turning 11, actually. Yeah. So when you're that young, I didn't want to, but I used what's available to us, and I did get him a mental health plan through our GP. And amazingly, they came to school, so they discreetly take him out of class, and then he spoke to this lady who had an amazing connection with her too, an older Italian lady. She was just wonderful. I could hardly understand her, but I think Kai was I think that maybe the energy she gave off. But he spoke positively about it, and she spoke to him about, that, it's okay that you get upset, but, we're going to deal with it these ways. And he said, the communication between your mum and dad's important, that you need to keep talking to them. So I don't think he was struggling, but I was just wanting to make sure that I gave him all the right things, or anything that was available to him to just help him, because when you're 10 years old, I don't think you know how to communicate properly like that. So she's an expert, so she did it. So that was Kai. But for the rest of my family, like I've already mentioned, it was just saying, look, this has happened, but yeah, just putting a positive spin on it. Just stop the negative talk. Just stop it. And I'm like you. My motto is I'm allowed to have a bad day, but I'm just not allowed to set up camp and stay there. It's just not an option.
Good advice.
Yeah, there's no camping in my house. It just doesn't happen. And like I said, if I had to work, it'd be different. But because I'm lucky that I don't have to, it allows me more time to be, and I hate to say that word, selfish, because we aren't as mothers and we aren't as professional women, but it's just given me time and the opportunity to rest when I'm tired, and to a bit of self-care, a bit of self-love, a bit of not a warm bath anymore because we can't regulate our body temperature, but a nice cool bath. I don't drink, so I'll just sip some water, but do you know what I mean? Just positive, all positivity. Yeah.
Very good advice, both of you, for family and friends. Fast forward to today, and you've already mentioned some of the things that you do, Linda. Have you had to make adjustments to your lifestyle because of your NMOSD? We've heard a little bit about it from both of you, but can you touch on that a little bit more, Erica?
Yeah, I mean, lifestyle for me has changed dramatically. I'm now not working. I started this year doing voluntary work, so that's helped my head so much. I just miss not being of use And that's been a big thing for me. I do yoga every week. I do Pilates. I go to physiologist. I go to exercise every week, to the gym twice a week. I go to aqua aerobics. So I do all those physical things, but because my body needs that, but my mind needed something else. My mind needed something that I felt I was of use for. I also joined a cooking class, which was through the day, through my local council. And I came out of there the first time and I cried my eyes out, because it dawned on me for the first time I was doing something for me and not to make me feel better for NMO. So that was a big step for me. That was awesome. And yeah, the volunteering has been brilliant, but my house has had to be changed. We had ramps everywhere, but my husband's just finished a big renovation so that I can get around the whole of the garden, and everything's all level now. So there's no stones. We had different stuff. So that's all gone now. So I can get everywhere with my walker, or if I need to use a chair and stuff, I can do that. So yeah, life has changed. I have a limited license because of my eyesight. So I can't drive at night, only short distances, and I have to be careful. And I'm not daft. I'm not willing to. It's the point of having the license back. They took it off me, and then getting it back was a bit of freedom. Just knowing I could go and get a coffee if I wanted to made a big difference to my head. But obviously, like Linda, when I get hot, my eyesight disappears completely. So if my core gets hot, or it gets too bright, or I get too tired, then as well as my legs not working well, my eyesight goes, so I won't drive them. But yeah, I'm not daft. I do what I can, but I wouldn't risk myself or somebody else by me driving when I shouldn't do, and things like that. So yeah, it's good. It's okay.
It is about learning to have a purpose again, isn't it? Because we've all had careers, and we're mums as well, and we give. But at the end of the day, you still need to find a purpose, and having that purpose, looking after your mind and body, as we've talked before. Linda, is there anything else you wanted to add to that one about adjusting your lifestyle?
No, it's similar to Erica. I think just realizing that there's things out there that can help you, because you have to adjust. So originally, when I was unwell, it was all about getting the physical side better, and then when I was ready, then I started seeing a psychologist, because let's face it, we have to grieve. I had to grieve. I had to grieve the body that I've lost. People probably can't see me, but I put on 35 kilograms in 6 months from the steroids. So it's grieving the body that I've left behind. It's grieving the old lifestyle that I had. It's grieving all those things that Erica mentioned. And so, like you would grieve a loved one, I still had to learn how to grieve, for the life that I once had, and now accept that this is the new me. And I hate saying the new me, because it's definitely not a new me. It's just a different way of life. So I would say that all the physical stuff, like Erica, I do heaps of stuff. I get exercise physiology, physiotherapy, but I think the mental assistance that I've received, a 2-year episode of care, has been one of the best things that I've done for my recovery. Definitely.
Yeah. Finally, if you had one thing to share with someone who is newly diagnosed with this condition, what would it be? Linda?
Don't compare yourself to others, because we've seen lots of people get on our Facebook group and say, "Look, I've got this," and they rattle all their signs and symptoms, and then they want us to give, which I was the same. I came onto that same Facebook group expecting to get a hard and fast answer, and there is none. There is no two patients with NMOSD present with the same symptoms, and so therefore you need to treat each and every case differently. Don't compare.
Perfect. And Erica?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. We're all very different, but I think, and somebody said it to me at about 3 months post diagnosis, just breathe, because I wanted to get everything. I sort it now, because we fix things, we sort it and everything. And I had to just breathe, just stop, let it go. Your body's gone through a hell of a lot. Your mind's gone through a lot. Just let it be, and life will get back to a normal. There will be a normal of some kind. It may not be what it was, but the more you fight for that, the less likely you're going to be able to just get something that you're happy with. So if you just breathe, just sit in it for a bit, just allow it, to be whatever you are, and then things they will get better. They will get better. You know, even as you girls know, every day there will be a moment in my day where I go, pain or fatigue or whatever. But the only way I get through that now is knowing tomorrow will be a different day. So just allowing it to be, not fighting too much, because then you use your energy for the nice things when you get to see the grandkids and you get to go on holiday or you get to do volunteering, and that's okay then. So just breathe.
To our listeners, I really hope that they've taken some of your advice, especially for those that are newly diagnosed. It can be a bit of a minefield. So I want to thank you both for being here on the couch today and sharing some very personal and moving reflections about living with NMOSD. I know that by sharing these stories, we help others understand a bit more about the disease, but also know that they are not alone and that others have been there and can stand beside them.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Erica.
We hope you have enjoyed listening to this NMOSD Your Way Global podcast. For more information about NMOSD and access to support and resources, please read the podcast description. What you have heard in this podcast may not be reflective of your own experience and does not replace the advice of a healthcare professional. If you have any concerns or specific questions about NMOSD, please speak to your physician.